Mic. Why does it always do that? Sorry about that. It was not supposed to be muted. I don't know what's going on here. Did you hear that they're planning on legalizing guns in Alberta? Thanks, Mark Carney. Idiot. I don't know what the fuck that's about. Oh.
Their culture, their prices, and displace Mexicans, the native people of Americans, stop immigrating to their country and stop stealing their homes. Most people coming from other countries, mostly foreigners, who want to impose their culture, their prices, and displace Mexicans, the native people of these lands. Protesters in Mexico smashed windows and screamed at tourists as part of an anti-gentrification march. I'm here because gentrification is just one more step towards colonization, dispossession, exploitation. Demonstrators spoke out against wealthy individual nomads driving up prices, particularly Mexicans who stay in Mexico for 180 days without a visa, or Americans that stay there. So now they don't like illegal immigrants? Yeah, base. See? Yeah, it sucks, right? Kill a gringo. Uh-oh. Even I know what that means. I went to a 70% Mexican high school, okay? I get it. I totally get it. Because these people come into your city, they have way more money than you do. They increase the prices of everything. Then they run you out of the fucking city. Having national pride and not wanting foreigners to come into your country, change its culture, its customs, and its traditions, that's normal. And I feel like the amount of guilt that people try to put on Western countries for exercising these same freedoms that Hispanic countries here are exercising, I think is ridiculous. Lots of white people? Bro, there are plenty of people that are Hispanic that have skin as white as mine. So aren't you black? No, I don't think so. So, I know one way I can test it. Should I test it?
Now we're playing with the big stuff. The
Y el motivo por el que nos hemos reunido.
The reason we've gathered here is precisely to hear the thoughts of many victims, mainly young people today, for whom it's almost impossible to live, to find housing. It's not just that, we're living the consequences of gentrification, which is the government directing its public policies towards people with higher purchasing power, often illegally displacing local population who have lived in these neighborhoods for 40, 50, and we have documented cases of up to 60
Here you go, man.
years.
En estos bares.
Chat. Says burger and fries. It's a pretty good burger, eh? Come here, dude.
Time for lefties losing it. You know, nature is healing. Things are getting better day by day, even as the demented Democrats call for Donald Trump to be impeached for a targeted strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Still, the number of sane, rational folk is increasing. You know, things are looking up when a confirmed TDS sufferer like Charlemagne is belatedly seeing the light. Now, this is going to outrage his lefty audience. There'll be meltdowns galore because he's spitting facts.
There have been a bunch of presidents who have ordered strikes without congressional approval. Barack Obama did it against Libya. Joe Biden ordered strikes in Iraq and Syria without congressional approval. Bill Clinton did it to Kosovo, I think you pronounce it. The president's ordering military action without congressional approval have become pretty routine.
And he's not alone. He's another Democrat, another lefty losing it. He used to rail against Trump. Who's now defending him? Stephen A. Smith is angry, not at the president, but at the Democrats and their calls for impeachment.
Yeah?
Democrats are
Okay.
calling.
You did what?
Or at least some
Well, those are good.
impeachment of Donald Trump. Same old Tony games. But we heard this before. I thought that was already done. The rest you lost the election, the popular vote in the electoral college vote and losing every swing thing. I thought we went over that. Question number one. No matter what you feel
Yeah,
about
buddy.
the President of the United States, do you think that's the time while we're in the middle of such strife to be called for the impeachment of the President of the United States? Particularly if you're a representative, you're an elected official in the United States of America. I don't think so. That's number one. Number two. Were the Democrats saying that when Obama lived?
It's a new day, folks. I'll be playing you some crazy lefties soon. But right now, we are just reveling in lefties who are finally seeing the light.
This is eradicating a threat. Civilian weren't targeted. Nuclear sites are targeted. You can navigate your way around the War Powers Act. So you don't have to concern yourself with receiving congressional approval. The Democrats know that because of Obama. So if you knew that because of Obama and you didn't say it when it involved him in Libya, why would you turn around and all of a sudden try to make that case against Donald Trump?
Really, he's done my work for me, precisely the arguments I was going to make, and now I have to listen to a lifelong Democrat make it. May lose it myself. Now, Trump has even got Democrat Senator John
You're not eating
Bennett,
your
who's
burger.
a far-left radical, criticizing AOC and
AOC.
Trump to be impeached.
Shut up. All bad enough for these Aussies. Yeah, cunts. Whoa, what's this guy's problem? There's too many immigrants in Mexico? No way. Well, they're going at her. Why are they wearing swastikas on their back and shit though? Kill a gringo. Go back to your own country. It's the reverse Uno card. Shut up. This is ridiculous. These people are actually racist over here in Mexico. What's going on with that? And who are they complaining about?
Demand that Americans stop immigrating to their country and stop stealing their homes. Those people coming from other countries.
This girl looks familiar.
Our next guest, Tara Bradburn's daughter, Callie McLeod.
Oh, no, she doesn't.
Luckily,
Kinda looks
she
like Kate, actually.
And is all right. Both of them join us now. Tara, this camp has been a big part of your daughter's life.
Not anymore.
It has been a huge.
She's never going back there.
Frost has well and truly returned to his relationship with Donald Trump after he launched his political party, the America Party, over the weekend. Donald Trump was just asked about this.
What?
This morning. Watch.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party.
The American Party.
Their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to it really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
Joining us now is the political analyst Joe Siracusa. Joe, good morning. Donald Trump's right. Third parties never work, right?
Good morning, Pete. Well, third parties can put an awful lot of pressure.
Jimmy Carter.
on some of the candidates. Sometimes it tips things, as it did with Ronald Reagan, actually, George H.
Yeah, Reagan.
Bush. But look, the idea of Musk threatening a third party because he's been shut out of Washington and fallen out with Donald Trump is pretty close to ridiculous itself. I mean, it's absurd. You know, apparently, Elon doesn't know how to lose, Pete. You know, within minutes or an hour of the president saying what he said, Tesla's stock fell 7%. Later in the day, Musk reported that Tesla fell off 14% in terms of delivery for the second quarter. So, you know, these things take body hits. And I don't know what he's trying to do right now. You know, it looks like not just a bromance, but it looks like a divorce that's really gone bad.
Yeah. But look, I'm reading Walter Isaacson's book on Elon at the moment, and look, Elon is a genius. He's a man for the ages. You know, with the work that he's done and all the companies that he's been associated with up until this point, up until Tesla, he's got Neuralink going, he's got X, he's got SpaceX, he's got a whole lot of things on the go, but he just can't leave the politics aside at the moment. And what do you put that down to is the fact that he doesn't lose, is that he just can't help himself, he's got to keep going.
Well, pretty much so. But look, you know, he lives by the law of physics. You know, he likes a scientific approach to things. Politics in America, Pete, as you know from your time covering it, ain't got nothing to do with physics or science. It's about emotions and things like that. And Elon has sort of a deficit there, trying to understand what moves American politics. Donald Trump is a phenomenon. You know, it's been 10 years since he came down that escalator, and he's transformed American politics. Musk doesn't understand what's happened or who supports him. This idea that you can attack the president and his party because they're looking a little too good with this last bill that came out. You know, it's sort of suicidal. So, you know, it isn't the first time that a businessman has been proved to be too naive for politics. American politics is filled with these guys.
and Trump's not helping himself, well, he can't help himself, rather, by going again. He's just posted on Truth Social, you might not be aware of this, Joe, but he says, I'm saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact that they have never succeeded in the United States. The system seems not designed for them. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos. I mean, he's got this lengthy rant here about EVs and the EV mandate, and just he just absolutely lashes Elon. So I mean, there's an indication too that while Elon can't leave it alone, Donald Trump can't leave it alone as well. Would you be worried, do you think, at all about a third party?
How to get me?
No, I mean, Elon's worried that America's going to go bankrupt before we can get to Mars. I mean, he's 50 years ahead.
But he does,
50 years ahead.
In his defense, though, I mean, he talked about this last week when we were talking about the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill. You know, what's the point of the debt ceiling if you just keep on raising it?
Well, because, you know, Trump really doesn't care. Trump is about the short term. He's 79 years old. He's got one term to go, that is. He's got about 3 years left, and he's just rolling the dice every day. Elon's thinking much further ahead. He's thinking about space exploration, electric cars, and things like that. But you know, he's just not thinking very far enough. But look, on this July 4th weekend, Pete, we've got to say something about Joey Chestnut.
Oh, yeah.
He won the Coney Island hot dog contest yesterday with eating 70.5 hot dogs in 10 minutes with the bun. I mean, that's enough. You know, I follow this guy's career because he holds all these food records in America.
Well, you know, they don't even chew.
What do you...
He doesn't even chew, and they wet the bread apparently so it's easy to digest.
Yeah, he said he was going slow at first because the buns seemed a little bigger than usual. I'll bet they did. Look, you know, we laugh about these hot dogs, but the man has eaten 12 pounds of artichokes in 10 minutes too. I mean, he's got records that would just, boggle the mind. But look, I like Elon Musk. He's a genius. He just ain't much for politics, and I wish him well, but I'll tell you what, when the richest man in the world wants to pick a fight with the most powerful man in the world, you know, it's not hard to see where the money's going to go.
Yeah.
It's time for Lefties Losing It. And you may recall songstress and lefty Losing It elder stateswoman Barbara Streisand blaming Donald Trump for making her fat. Yes, the president's powers are truly profound. Well, it's not just Babs who's overeating because of Donald Trump. Here is Rosie O'Donnell talking about how Trump's triumph saw her piling on the weight and hitting the bottom.
During his first go-round, it was very difficult, and I got myself into some bad places. You know, I was very, very depressed. I was overeating. I was over-drinking. I was, you know, I was so depressed, Chris. It hurt my heart that America believed the lies about him, and then it broke my heart to be in a business that creates and sells those lies for profit. You know, it was very heavy, to tell you the truth.
She wants you to think she's better now because she's fled to Ireland, but here she is just a few weeks ago with her delusional dreams about getting rid of Donald Trump. She thought it could happen perhaps even by June 14th.
It's upsetting everywhere you turn. It's really hard to believe that this man is the president of the United States. Yet he is, you know, and I'm just hoping that we can get him out as soon as possible, hopefully before June 14th. Now, I don't know that that's possible, but that's when he wants to have this massive $90 million military parade for himself.
The parade was for the military, Rosie, celebrating 250 years
That's pretty
of
good.
service, and it was magnificent, you miserable fantasies. Now, here are more.
We didn't ask for it. In fact, no one did. Joe Biden is back. The former president spoke at a human resource management
It's so
convention
funny.
this week and appears to be suffering under the delusion that he's still the president.
Yes.
President Biden said he's keeping busy in his retirement by still negotiating with world leaders.
How can you just walk away? I'm not, you know, you don't see me out there publicly doing a lot of this. They ask to see me, I see me.
Maybe world leaders are suffering from insomnia and need a chat with Biden to fall asleep. Even here at home, Biden says he's chatting with Democrats and Republicans, perhaps to ask what actually happened during his time in office, because he's, quote, working like hell to write a whopping 500-page memoir by March, which is sure to debut near the bottom of the bestsellers list. But maybe Biden's memoir will finally reveal who is really running the White House during his term. One former DNC staffer believes Jill Biden was the puppet master. Well, we may get answers soon as congressional probes are heating up. Former Biden officials are set to testify in the coming weeks, including Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, on Wednesday. Joey, I have an extremely difficult time believing that foreign leaders are calling up Joe Biden to ask for his advice on anything, let alone the goings-on in the world.
Yeah, I don't see it. I can see them I can see them saying we'd prefer Biden to be in office. I mean, Trump says himself, I don't blame them, but they were getting a better deal from the Democrats than they're going to get from me. So there's that angle. I think as a former president and a man who's aging, potentially not in good health, he's got to save the Biden name and relevancy because that's what they have to make money on, and that's what every president does. So go out, give speeches, and unfortunately as a politician, you have to tell the story the way you want to tell it, not necessarily how it happened.
And Joe, the idea that foreign leaders are calling Joe Biden for advice when members of his own party don't want anything to do with him. Take a look at what Kamala Harris posted this past Independence Day weekend. Notably, in the original shot, Joe and Joe Biden were right next to them. This is the cropped image, intentionally left out.
Wow, there's some symbolism there because that's exactly what happened with Joe Biden in July of 2024, 1 year ago, where we had a party that was talking about saving democracy. So what did they do? Their own party actually ousted a sitting president to install another candidate without one vote from any Democrats or the general public in general. So they talk about saving democracy, yet they're doing the Soviet-style installation. I saw in that package that we just played that Joe Biden is still negotiating with world leaders. What exactly is negotiating? And is that proper for a former president to be doing? To be going behind the back of the sitting president now at this point? Either way, there needs to be accountability around this. If an auto pen, and we don't even know who was running the auto pen, was signing all these executive orders and running the country, we didn't know who was running the country because, again, that's not democracy. That is a shadow government, and we need answers and accountability. But I have a feeling the American people are going to be disappointed because nothing ever happens in these situations again. There's never any accountability.
Absolutely. And Arnell, perhaps one of the reasons why Democrats are sort of keeping Joe Biden at arm's length is because they also want to distance themselves from the mental acuity cover-up scandal. Listen to Representative James Comer discuss how Congress is going to hold those Democrats accountable.
I think what was going to happen when they all initially agreed to come in voluntarily was that they were going to plead executive privilege and not answer our questions. They don't have that. President Trump's waived it. They're going to have to answer our questions, and we will hold them in contempt of Congress.
A couple of names that stood out to me on the list of former Biden officials that Republicans plan to bring in. Former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who recently announced her exit from the Democratic Party, and also Dr. Kevin O'Connor, Biden's White House physician, who insisted repeatedly in public medical reports that Biden was all fine and well. What do you make of that?
Listen, President Trump won the 2024 election. President Biden is now the former president. So let's move forward. Why is Congress wasting money on doing these investigations on what Trump won? Let's move on. President Trump is running the country, how he sees best for Americans. So why are we wasting time on all of this? And by the way, as far as that crop photo is concerned, the former vice president was making a comment about her husband. She and her husband sharing the holiday together, and so that's why she cropped them out. But quite frankly, if we had a 4-shot right now, I'm cutting all the was out. I mean, me.
Well, I do think the investigation matters because it's important. Americans deserve to know who was representing them for 4 years. If it wasn't Joe Biden, then who was it? Wasn't an unelected cabal of White House staffers?
You guys, you know that Joe Biden was not suffering the entire time. I'm just saying, we're just wasting a lot of time.
Even if it was 1 year though, Oracle, that's
okay,
still
well,
a year.
I don't know, and I'm not here speaking for Joe Biden. What I'm saying is that it's time to move on. President Trump won. There's so many things that our country needs to be focused on for the betterment of Americans. So
we should just let it go.
No, I'm not saying let it go. I'm saying not spend so much time on relitigating what is in the past. And as far as whatever, really quickly, whatever as far as his auto pen action, President Trump has come in and undone and redone, again, for the betterment of the people as he sees fit. So he has the power now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Welcome to Fox News Sunday, Mr. Secretary. Good to have you.
Good to see you.
Let's start with the bill.
What is that for
You
trouble?
wrote a piece over at FoxNews.com, an op-ed, and you say one of the main issues is ending illegal immigration as a key part of this. It's about redirecting an estimated $249 billion in annual wages paid to people here in the U.S. illegally, to those who are here legally, or to American citizens. You say this: ending the black market of undocumented labor by funding enforcement of our existing immigration laws will result in a massive pay raise for the working class. So that begs the question then, if there are higher wages, businesses are going to have to pass that on somewhere else. Does that end up then with the American consumer?
Well, I don't think it happened. What we saw was this massive immigration across the board. Whether it's 12 or 22 million people who came in, suppressed working people's wages. And for 20 years, the big lie was that this kind of immigration didn't hurt working people. Now, economists have come out and said, oh, what a surprise. Even the laws of supply and demand work in the low-end labor market. So I talk about in that editorial what I call parallel prosperity, that for years Wall Street has done well. Now it's time for Main Street to do well, and they can both do well. And that's the one big beautiful bill. That's the beauty of this. It helps Wall Street and Main Street.
So let's talk about those jobs, because there are skeptics who say, the American workers and those who say who are sort of their wages depressed, that they're not going to step up and take some of these jobs. Here's a bit of analysis from libertarian-leaning Cato Institute. They say the U.S. labor market remains tight, and there are simply not millions and millions of idle American workers sitting on the sidelines just itching to take these newly open jobs. To the extent Trump's broad deportation promises come to fruition, we can expect many immigrant-dependent industries to suffer and few American workers to gain. So is it overly optimistic to think there are Americans who will flood to these jobs?
I don't think that it's overly optimistic to believe that at a price, Americans will do these jobs. But, again, this the workforce, especially men aged 16 to 35, are in an era of despondency, and they have dropped out of the workforce. They are having health issues, they're having mental health issues, and I think that they will come back in, and this is part of President Trump's agenda. We're doing peace deals, trade deals, and tax deals, and the trade deals and the tax deals are going to bring back working class jobs with good wages, with good health care.
So let's talk about tariffs, because obviously we're hitting this deadline. We think this week the president's talked about sending out letters to a number of our top trading partners about, listen, if you can't get a deal, kind of this is the drop-dead deadline. We are going to drop a new set of tariffs come August 1st. So is it fair to say there's a bit of a pause on the July 9th deadline for some of these trading partners? Who do you think is getting these letters first?
Well, Jenna, I don't think it's a bit of a pause, because I think what's happened is there's a lot of congestion going into the home stretch, and as part of the trade team, what's great about having President Trump on side is he's created maximum leverage. So by telling our trading partners that they could boomerang back to the April 2nd date, I think it's really going to move things along the next couple of days and weeks.
Okay, so let's talk about some analyses on these tariffs. From the AP, they say this: a JP Morgan Chase Institute analysis finds a critical group of U.S. employers would face a direct cost of $82.3 billion from President Donald Trump's current tariff plans. They go on to say the investment bank Goldman Sachs said in a report expects companies to pass 60% of their tariff costs on to consumers. Our most recent poll shows that 57% of Americans do think the tariffs are going to hurt the U.S. economy. So some of the experts, everyday Americans, they have real concerns about how this is going to cost them. What's your message to them?
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, has turned into Tariff Derangement Syndrome. As soon as you call them the Trump tariffs, 90% of Democrats hate them. And I'm going to have to disagree with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. The empirical data shows that we have seen no inflation thus far, and we'll see over the coming months. And Shannon, there's a big difference in inflation and one-time price adjustment also. Inflation is a generalized monetary phenomenon. We're not going to see that. And thus far, we haven't even seen the one-time price adjustment. What we are seeing, the business model for many of our trading partners, especially in Southeast Asia, is to produce. And the manufacturers in those countries are taking the price increases into, or the tariffs into their margins.
So let's talk about some of the specifics, because the EU, you've talked about that's notoriously difficult because you've got 27 different entities that are feeding into this conversation. They've got a lot of leverage, frankly. They have talked about the fact that they're ready for retaliatory tariffs if this new level kicks in. I know there were talks through the weekend. Where are we with them?
It's moving along. We'll see where we go. They came to the table late. President Trump brought them to the table about 3 weeks ago with the threat of 50% tariff. That got an immediate reaction from about 5 of the national leaders, and he had a call with Ursula von der Leyen right after. So we're getting much more fulsome negotiations. But Shannon, I would disagree with you. The leverage here is with the United States. We are the deficit country, the surplus country. Trading surplus with us. We have the leverage because their economy is much more export dependent than the U.S. In general, the U.S. is a very large, closed service economy that our imports are quite low. We're a big economy, which makes the deficit numbers big.
Let's talk about Japan. The president said this week, tough to make a deal with them. He said they're very spoiled. How's that going?
Japan, again, they are great allies. I think that there may be a nuance here that they have upper house elections on July 20th, and a lot of the things that they're talking about require legislation, so we may have to see what happens with those elections.
Okay, I want to ask you too about the Fed chair. The president has said this week, among other things, called Jerome Powell a moron. They are not besties at this point, it appears. There's speculation now that he may go ahead and announce a replacement for him way early, since his term is not up until next May. Wall Street Journal reporting this: an early announcement could allow the chair in waiting to influence investor expectations about the likely path for rates, like a backseat driver attempting to steer monetary policy before Powell's term ends. You have demurred on whether you would be the guy for that job, but what do you think is the impact of all of this public back and forth with the Fed chair?
Well, I'm a basketball fan, and in basketball, there are two schools of working the refs. There's the Bobby Knight School and the Dean Smith School. Obviously, President Trump's more in the Bobby Knight School, and I will tell you, Bobby Knight won 3 national championships. Dean Smith only won 2, so working the refs seems to be effective.
So there may be some chair throwing.
Sorry?
I'm sure saying there might be some chair throwing if we're over the Bobby Knight School of how this is done.
That think about this. There are good candidates already on the Fed board who for Fed chair, and they make their opinions known at every meeting. So I don't find that disruptive at all.
Okay, Mr. Secretary, great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.
All right, the FBI is now re-examining high-interest cases that went unsolved in the Biden era. That includes the 2021 D.C. pipe bombings, the 2022 leak of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, and the cocaine that was found in the White House in 2023.
You discussed this and more as FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Dan, great to see you.
Dan,
Again.
yeah, welcome back to Fox.
Absolutely.
See you in person. That's something you can never see. Great to see all of you.
First off, before we get into specifics, what did you think the job was going to be like? What is it like?
You know, the biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. I mean, we already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you know, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap, and then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, but I didn't mean me, you know, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. I mean, you don't sound like a fraud, you are one. So, it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, you know, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But the president asked me to do this to like it. You know, nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big, bold changes. But, you know, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, and a woman that worked there, very nice, said, you know, I used to watch your show, I miss you. I said, you know, I miss me too. You know, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
You're doing this for country, so we appreciate that and we thank you. And we're excited to find out, to roll back the curtain and find out what's deep in the FBI. We have so many questions about those 3 cases we just mentioned. Y'all are doing a deep dive into this. What's the latest on those investigations?
So the moment Cash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. You know, we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. We got it. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the 3. And I want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And in the cocaine in the White House, you know, I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you. That said, I don't care about the kids. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to investigate it fully. Like, you know, what planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
So you're faced with this interesting thing. I've known you since I was a kid, and I know your instinct is to swing back. But you promised that you weren't going to do that. You promised that you were going to get rid of the partisanship, and you were going to go back to being a law enforcement officer. You went in there, and there were some cases that were closed or still open that a lot of the public felt a little sketchy about. the first assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. It's like, is he really the guy? What happened with Epstein? Can you say with confidence, as a lot of people used to be their guy when it comes to podcasts, appearing on Fox News, but now as a law enforcement officer, can you say we have all the information?
Well, I'm never going to say we have all of it, and people ask me all the time, are these cases closed? And whether they're closed administratively is irrelevant. If new tips come in, we're absolutely going to follow them, and that's why I always put out, if you have additional information, please let us know. Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't. Right. There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
Video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay. There was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release it, that's what's taken a while on this. We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced version, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So there's three cases that you're looking at: the two DC pipe bombings, the Supreme Court leak of the Dobbs decision, and the cocaine in the White House. You say one of them, within a day or two, we're gonna have a major break?
Well, we got a good tip this morning. We're going to run it out. We're not going to be able to make that public, obviously, right away, because we have to make sure, and we have to go all the proper steps. What I don't want to do ever, and I've said this before, it's not an excuse. I can't say to the public enough. I put it in my tweets all the time. I'm not asking you to trust me. Nothing drives me crazy or do low. They're asking us to trust a plan. I am absolutely not. Read my tweets. I don't want you to trust me. I don't. I'd be nice. All I care about is results.
So let's talk about
make sure it's done right.
He clearly wants a result when he told Brett Baer on the assassination. Now, he's got questions on the first one. Watch.
There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter at Butler. And we don't know about his communications. Will we get transparency?
I thought it was strange. The one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay. I have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. I know that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. They live outside of Butler, another little place. When did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
You're the president.
Can't find out Secret Service. They tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
So then the question is that a lot of people have wondered is, did this kid have the help? He could not have pulled it off by himself. Was it a foreign actor? Did someone provide him with the weapons? Was it a chatter online?
Well, let's be clear. There are two separate parallel tracks. Foreign actors targeting people in the United States. And it's not just the president, it's others. That is a very real track. The question is, do they intersect? The case file now, which, by the way, we are going to make another public release on this coming up. We're just kind of finishing up the product now to make sure it's tight and put together. You're going to see a lot of what you've heard about online does not exist in the case file. I'm not telling you information may not surface later. We do the PDB, the President's Daily Brief. We get the same brief, me and Cash, every morning. We have warned people out, telling them if there's something there we want to find. They have shaken every tree on this.
You talk to his classmates, you talk to his family, you talk to everyone, because they said they burned the body, cremated, and they cleaned the whole house out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There are, like with the Epstein case, for example, we have a number of significantly odd abnormalities that would make a normal person go, huh? What? If Lawrence is near his bank at 4 o'clock and the bank gets robbed, but we know Lawrence reported to work afterwards as an alibi, the fact that the bank was robbed, it's a fact that Lawrence was there, but it's not evidence that Lawrence committed the crime. Things, really, really bad things happened in this case, but when you see the report we're going to release, you'll see that not everything you've been told is true. But the president is not wrong at all. I mean, he was shot in the head. He was shot in the head, got up and screamed, fight. Of course he's going to lie answers, but that's our responsibility. And nothing's ever closed. If new evidence surfaces, we'll be sure to get it
There
out.
were just things that were strange. The slope roof thing, you know, the guy was on his bicycle roaming around, never caught, never seen. Let's talk about something that's been in the news this morning, and that is Kash Patel talking about how when James Comey was on the beach and he posted that social media 8647, he claims that he just happened to walk up along the beach and they saw the shells, he and his wife, and he put it on social media, says he thought it was innocent. He was the director of the FBI, but thought it was innocent. He knows what 86 means. Then Kash Patel said, now we have all these copycats, and now y'all are having to pull resources from all these serious crimes, terrorists, gang-related individuals, drug traffickers, and people who are abusing children. We're pulling them off to go research these copycats because we can't afford another assassination attempt.
I got to tell you, of all the things that have surprised me in the close to now 3 months I've been here, is the depravity of Jim Comey. This man is a disgrace to the badge, the FBI, and the country. What he's doing right now, but one, going out and taking shots at Kash. Kash doesn't belong. Kash was the chief of staff at the Department of... Kash is a patriot. Kash has served in numerous high-level roles, taking personal shots while you're on the beach, implying a threat towards the president and blaming your wife about it. And let me just add about James Comey, you know, Saint Comey, who walks around demoralizing to everyone how wonderful of a human being he is. What you said is absolutely accurate. We have wasted countless man hours now running out the tips to our tip line about people putting 8647 because of Jim Comey, because he cannot control himself and his emotions. He is a child. He is a big child. Now, let me tell you one more thing. Jim Comey, Jim Comey taking a shot at the president. Oh, look at me, I'm such a victim. The president's going after me. He's making a ton of money on this book. The only person that got prosecuted was the president. Jim Comey, we're finding stuff even now. Wait till you read the stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, does he still have a loyalist in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden, okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here, you know, we need to talk. There are people there who are really horrified at what happened. And there was a room, and we found stuff, a lot of stuff. A hidden room. I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there, and a lot of it's from the Comey era, and we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. Just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it. Once that gets done and that gets out there and you read some of the stuff we found, that by the way was not processed through the normal procedure, digitizing it, putting it in FBI records, we found it in bags, hiding under Jim Comey's FBI. You're going to be stunned.
The shells on the beach, can you not talk to social media and say, y'all take this down? If you see anyone posting this, take it down. It's a threat to the president's life. Second thing, can you arrest people that post these like Comey?
We make arrest decisions based on an interaction with the Department of Justice, with the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, not prosecution. The problem is a lot of these cases haven't been a Secret Service agent. Is you're going to prove intent, and here's what you don't want. You say you arrest them, and he goes, there's not a magistrate that's going to, and the guy walks out of court doing a victim. You have to build a case. You need to build probable cause. I don't want to do what the left did, which is jump the gun. I mean, that you have a situation like the prior deputy director, prior to me, Andrew McCabe, who goes back, you know, files a lawsuit. You know, this guy was engaged in one of the biggest scandals in American history. He got $200,000, I believe, and his pension. You have to do this the right way.
What about social media?
And he also got a network contract, so he's an expert commenting on you.
Yeah, but what's that like? Well, listen, as Lauren said before, it's difficult for me to not be able to respond like I used to, but there'll be a day. There'll be a day. I'll be back one day, and I'm going to be sure to answer all that stuff. But that's not my job now. My job now is to put aside my partisan interests and to responsibly handle the deputy director of the FBI? Because you got to remember, Brian, nothing that gets to our desk near cash is a 5 or a 6 problem. Everything's a 10. If it's a 9, someone else fixed it.
We didn't get a chance to look at the laptop that the FBI held on to make sure it wasn't a factor in the election.
Well, that's another thing I wanted to address. You know, we can't publicly talk about HR matters. We just can't. You know,
It's illegal.
Yeah, it's you can't do it. But anyone out there who thinks we have not taken appropriate action against political actors, they're just making that up. We can't go out and advertise this stuff, but if you think we're allowing partisanship to infiltrate the FBI, just let all that bad stuff happen, you're really just making, I don't know why you're doing it. Maybe you're trying to break up, divorce us from the people and breed mistrust, but that is not what's happening. I don't know what people think me and Cash are doing all that. I mean, I gave up everything for this. I mean, you know, my wife is struggling and everything. I'm not a victim. I'm not Jim Comey. It's fine. I did this and I'm proud I did it. But if you think we're there for tea and crumpets, well, I mean, Cash is there all day. We share our offices are linked. He turns on the faucet, I hear it. He's there he gets in like 6 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't leave till 7 at night. You know, I'm in there at 7:30 in the morning. He uses the gym. I work out in my apartment. But I stare at these 4 walls all day in D.C. You know, by myself, divorced from my wife. Not divorced, but I'm separated from her. And it's hard. I mean, we love each other. I mean, it's hard to be around.
But you're doing some great work. You're straighten out the FBI, you move the buildings, there's a lot of change.
I just got one more thing. I'm not asking anyone to trust me. Trust is for fools. Just wait for the results. That's all I'm asking. Don't trust me. Trust is for fools. Too many actors in government have asked you to trust them and screwed you in the past. We're not doing that.
Speed, you don't need speed English. You need to do it.
Smooth as fast.
Thanks, Dan.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
I didn't hurt you, did I?
No, he's still
A
here.
little bit. Okay, yeah.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
All right, we continue now with FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Dan, sorry about that technical error. All right, I was asking you mentioned the drone threat, you mentioned China. I mentioned we have known terrorists, known assassination squads, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers in the country. So it's worse than you thought, is what you're explaining to us. And that means you have to prioritize your manpower, including 1 million man-hours spent on immigration to get finding these unvetted illegals that have these horrific track records. You know, let me scroll, for example. I scrolled this during the campaign. Americans that were murdered, raped, and victims of violent crime. No Democrat ever, cared. They told us the border was secure and the border was closed. I'll scroll the names. Explain how you prioritize that.
Yeah, it's manpower triage has become Cash and I our number one job. The FBI portfolio responsibility, Sean, hasn't changed. The counter-terror mission, in other words, we can't have New York, D.C., or L.A. go boom. Obviously, we wake up every day, Cash and I in that briefing. That's always going to be priority number one. But kind of co-equal priorities right now underneath that, the massive cyber threat, the counterintelligence threat. You just accurately indicated the number of people that were that flooded in through the southern border and some through the northern border as well. There are people here, let's be very clear, who want to do bad things. I think that's fairly obvious. We have our FBI teams out there at 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. They can tell you, and they're happy to do it, out there working with HSI, ERO, and removing these people from the country while still preventing a terror attack, investigating terror attacks that do happen. And I'm going to add another thing, Sean. We're not the Federal Bureau of freaking word games anymore, okay? It's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. When some guy shows up at a scene and I'm getting an intel stream from our information center that indicates he threw an incendiary device, okay, while screaming very specific words with multiple witnesses and video, we're damn well going to investigate it, listen to me, investigate it as targeted violence and a terror attack. You don't like it, you don't have to follow my official Twitter. But I saw a whole bunch of people losing their minds. What the hell you want us to investigate it as? A freaking grand larceny auto?
We're investigating it as a terror attack because that's the information we have. And we're not going to start playing euphemisms games and word games anymore. We're not doing it. With the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and we're going to investigate properly.
For those, and it's kind of a lightning round because I don't have enough time unless I gave you the whole hour and it would be worth doing it. But for people like me, I wants answers to the Epstein file issue and what happened. And I never knew there were 10,000 hours of tapes. And was it suicide? You said there's a tape. Or JFK, RFK, MLK files. All of that is still coming, correct?
Yeah, JFK, we're done. The FBI's equities in that, we've already released that. RFK, I got to check back on that one. There is more coming on the Epstein files. Listen, I know this is a hot potato for folks. I totally understand. My comments were clear. I'm not paid for my opinions anymore. I work for the taxpayer now. I'm paid on evidence. That's it. The evidence we have in our files clearly indicates that it was, in fact, suicide. We do have video. It's not the greatest video in the world. I don't want to set expectations on fire. However, the video does show in that specific block that he goes in, made a phone call. You'll see 12 hours of guards going in, basically check on him, come back. You'll see no one really comes out in that day, in that area, than him. There's no one in there. When you combine that with the other evidence we will be releasing in the coming weeks, we're still finalizing some of the products. I think it's pretty clear. However, as I've clearly indicated in some of my tweets on my official account, listen, investigations, if new information surfaces in the future on any of these cases, we're always open. I'll just tell you, there's nothing there in the file at all that indicates anything other than, in fact, a suicide.
Let me ask you about, and again, a lightning round, let's go quickly. COVID origins. Are we going to find out information that the government lied to us?
Damn right you are. We're all over that. The minute I got in there in that job, I said
they purposely lied to the American people. They purposely lied to them.
Yeah, listen, that's the one I'm the most optimistic about. I was pretty clear on my social media account that I ordered that case immediately to be looked into again. We have a great investigator on it, and I think we should see action on that one shortly.
Let me ask you about this. The prior FBI director, or directors, let's say, we saw a double standard when it came to the Mar-a-Lago raid and top secret classified information. Donald Trump versus Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Did you see any evidence? Has any evidence emerged that former directors may have tried to cover their tracks? And you did mention the other day that maybe traps were being set for you and Cash.
Well, I'll address the Mar-a-Lago raid. Action was taken on that because it involves human resources issues. I can't make specific comments, but anyone telling you we didn't action that is lying to you. Absolutely lying to you. I assure you, we did.
Was it political, in other words? Was that a political decision?
Sean, because it involves some specific HR actions we had to take. I don't want to get into specifics on that, but I'll leave it at this. We found some really troubling items in there that we actioned immediately, to say the least. Also,
is it fair to say that a double standard was applied in that case in terms of top secret classified information? Is that fair?
Well, I think that's fairly clear when you look at how two cases were handled there, and that's why we did a scrub immediately of holdings, and like I said, we had to take action on that immediately. And there was another case, you brought up another case, you brought up the other director, Comey, as a matter of fact, the guy who has a lot to say, ironically, about me and Cash, and that's fine. He's allowed an opinion. He is a free American citizen like anyone else. But we found items. I addressed this on Fox and Friends, and I can go into a little bit more detail, but we found things. We found documents that were not where they should have been, and they were not good, flattering documents for Jim Comey. So the hubris displayed from a man like Jim Comey, who disgraced the FBI numerous times with his role in Crossfire Hurricane and other abominations, it's just kind of stunning that he continues to attack our leadership when we have to clean up the mess Jim Comey created as we continue to find stuff from his era and vintage.
Well, he he signed 3 of the 4 FISA warrants that were all based, the bulk of information presented to the FISA court was the dirty Russian disinformation dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for. Between that and the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, are you finding evidence that they knew damn well that that was false and that they did it for political reason, that in fact the FBI, what is supposed to be the world's premier law enforcement agency, was politicized and weaponized?
Think of all the troubling things I've seen so far on the reform agenda. The Crossfire Hurricane documents and what we found in those. Now, again, I've seen some commentary because I enjoy the feedback. I do. I like it. And people are wondering where are the documents. Well, the documents are coming out. The problem with the documents coming out, and Director Patel has said this multiple times, it is a rolling production of Crossfire Hurricane documents. Well, you may ask, fair enough, why the hell is it rolling? Get it all out. Because we don't have it all. Well, why don't you have it all? Because nobody gave it to us all. Well, why did they do that? Exactly. We're finally saying, we have a lot of good people working on it, I promise you. But the bad people kind of knew what they were doing. So the rolling production is rolling for a reason. As soon as we find this stuff, and other intelligence agencies have some equities in it too, and we can clear that through the process, we're getting it out. Members of Congress and the U.S. Senate that have reached out, we're getting them the stuff as soon as it comes in. And yes, one of the specific documents I read indicates to me that there was a large degree of malfeasance here. We're not just talking misfeasance.
Let me ask you about, are you going to be looking into, Cash and Pam, any potential collusion between the DOJ, Letitia James, the novel legal theory of Alvin Bragg, or Nathan Wade, or Bonnie Willis, and the DOJ? Is that something? Has anything come up? Is there any way to determine whether or not evidence was destroyed in any of these cases?
Well, there's always a way to determine that. I don't want to comment on that specific case right now for a reason. I don't want to get ahead of the Department of Justice on that. But I want to say that, the FBI obviously has the public corruption portfolio. And yes, if you are a corrupt politician out there, if you are engaged in behavior, and you know what you're doing, we're going to find it. I promise. No one is going to get off the days of selecting and putting your partisan bias on and taking care of your friends. Those days are over. You know what, Sean? I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. Well, maybe outside of you, but a couple of them. I don't care. I didn't come here for the money. I didn't come here to make. I know it.
I didn't come there for the money.
I didn't come here to make friends. I don't give a damn about friends. I don't have any friends. I don't want any friends. I got my wife. I got you, and I got a small crew of people. So I don't need any friends. If you're a politician,
DC, get a dog. I don't know.
Yeah, so you want a friend in DC, right? Go get a Labrador like I am, because there are no friends in DC. You've been doing this what, 30 years? There are no friends here.
Let me ask you this: White House cocaine, Dobbs decision, traditional Catholics, peaceful abortion protesters, treatment of parents at school board meetings. I mean, man. We covered this extensively. When you were in the meeting, you covered it extensively. All seem, on the surface, to be extreme abuses of power. Is this something we will get answers to?
Yeah, I'm on that. I put that out in my account as well. Yeah, we're looking into that. The pipe bomb case, which immediately, again, day one, I don't mean that figuratively, I mean literally day one, after I swore in, I said, what we got? What do we got? So give me a team. I want to hear everything. Get them in brief. I want to see the whole thing. Pipe bomb case, Dobbs. We've gotten a lot of good information. This is a serious case. You had threats made to Supreme Court justices. I get a kick out of it on social media. People, this case isn't a big deal. I don't care. Well, I don't care that you don't care. I care. We just caused a big, huge. There may have been a threat case for a Supreme Court justice. There's potential obstruction here. This is an enormous case. Cocaine in the White House. Again, I'm not interested in, you don't care what a hazardous substance made its way into the White House. We didn't know what it was, and we don't seem to have answers as to who it was. Well, we're going to get them. I've got a great team on it. That was another case. I've been very clear on this. We're taking another look at this stuff. The public, Sean, needs to trust us again. There's a lot of work to be done. I'm under no illusions that in the now
3 months I've been here, all of a sudden, oh great, Dan Bongino's in charge, we trust you. That's BS. Trust is for fools. Results matter. I'm not asking you to trust me. I can't say verify. Results. Yeah, verify is all that matters. You don't have to trust me. I don't want anybody's trust.
All right, let me ask you last question. Because I've known you for so long, and I talk to too many people, not just you, many people, many sources, many people that know a lot more than I know, and that they're all shocked at the threat level of so many different levels. Maybe last word to manage expectations of people, prioritizing safety, and a promise that everything we discussed and brought up tonight, we're going to, including cocaine in the White House and peacefully protesting pro-life people and traditional Catholics and et cetera, that also will be gotten to. Epstein will be gotten to. MLK, RFK, JFK, all of that. But you need, where will we be a year from now?
Yeah, someone asked me that on a special agent in charge conference call the other day. Where do you visit the FBI a year from now? Well, I'll tell you. I'll give you that answer. A year from now, I want the FBI to play a key role in the deportation of hundreds of thousands of violent criminals from the United States. I want the FBI to have thwarted multiple terror plots that we can't tell you about every day. Sean, every morning we do a briefing, Cash and I, with our ops directors. We can't sit here and take a victory lap every time something doesn't go boom. Matter of fact, we almost never do it because we can't. I want to make sure that our counterintelligence operation is top-notch, that the ever-present threat of the Chinese Communist Party infiltrating our systems, cyber spying on us, that by the end of the year we made significant progress. I want to be sure the drone threat, that we've taken action on it, not just talked about it. We're getting money, assets, and teams in place. And I want to be sure we can look back to the American people and say, look, with President Trump's leadership, Attorney General Bondi and Director Patel, the murder rate is at a historic low. Crime rates have gone down. The border is sealed. And your FBI took a part in that.
And then we'll also get to the bottom of these other issues, and that's your pledge, Cash's pledge, and Tab's pledge, and the President's pledge. People want to know
Looking you in the eye, listen to me, through this camera. You have my word. We are on it. Okay. We are on it.
All right, Dan Bongino, you've been very generous with your time, and your patience has been great. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
The police commissioner of Boston. You said you doubled down on not helping law enforcement officers of ICE. I'm coming to Boston, I'm bringing hell with me.
It's a promise made, promise kept. A month after that promise, Borders Our Time Home announced a multi-agency operation in Boston that arrested nearly 400 illegal immigrants, a majority of them criminal migrants. This, as a local news investigation revealed that multiple illegals were rounded up by ICE, were charged with, and you just look at it, you got 3 counts of child rape. You got aggravated child rape of a victim under the age of 9. Then you look right here, assault to rape and a mass armed robbery. This person was released on 0 bail. Then you got 2 illegal aliens charged with child rape. They released $500 each. And then finally, 2 illegal aliens charged with cocaine and fentanyl trafficking released on $500 and $4,000 when it comes to the bill. Let's bring in the big man himself, Borders Our Tom Homan. Tom, tell me exactly what's happening on the ground. How were you able to accomplish this?
Well, look, we're keeping President Trump's promise. President Trump has promised we're going to secure the border, which we've done to a large extent. We're still working on it, but we're at 96% decline on the border. And he promised we're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats, illegal aliens in this country, and that's what we're doing.
So, Tom,
Boston, I said at CPAC, they're a sanctuary state, and we're going to come, and despite their sanctuary status, we're going to bring agents there, and we're going to take these worst of the worst off the streets.
So, Tom, just to get into some of the specifics here, so you got these folks that had already been charged with this. What your agents were asking, keep these guys behind bars, and we'll go pick them up. But many of these criminals got charged, and they were released back on the street, right? You're absolutely right. In one case, I looked at, watched one case, there's a child rape. He was released 2 years ago without on our retainer. It took us 2 years to find this person. So how many children did he attack the last 2 years? All we're asking for is let our agents in the jail, would you lock somebody up? And let us arrest them there when you're done with them, rather than release them back in the public and make a public safety issue out of it.
Tom, now that you have these guys in custody, where are they going?
They're going to be deported. They're in detention now, when we deport each and every one of them. We're going to stand by the president's promise to decrease illegal alien crime in this country. We're not going to arrest every illegal alien public safety threat, every illegal alien national security threat is eradicated from this country. That's what we're doing. We're going to get it done.
This is what the governor of Massachusetts had said. Governor Healey said this. Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state. Massachusetts law enforcement regularly partner with the federal agencies and federal law enforcement to keep people safe. We're ranked as one of the safest states in the country. So, Tom, is it a sanctuary state or not?
Yeah, it is, and we just proved them wrong. The mayor Wu in Boston said I was lying under oath, and I was lying about the city. Well, we went to that city. We went to the surrounding counties around that city, and you look what we did in 5 days. We have a lot of work to do. We're not done. We're going back. And I said we're going to keep going back until every illegal alien public safety threat's removed, not from Massachusetts, from the country. We're going to make this country safer. President Trump made a promise, and we're going to keep President Trump's promise.
Tom, there's been some pushback about the flights going overseas. Will the flights continue? Will these people go back?
Well, the Alien Enemies Act, we'll let that play out in court. I'm not an attorney, but DOJ's taking that out in court. But in the meantime, I've said, we're not going to stop arresting Venezuelan TDA members in this country. And if we can't remove them through tidal weight, then we're going to detain them until this case is over. But we're going to arrest them. We're going to take them off the streets. We're going to keep our promise. TDA has been verified as terrorist organizations. Them and MS-13. They're a designated terrorist organization. Those two flights carry terrorists out of this country. We're not going to apologize for it. We think we did the right thing. We followed the Aliens Enemies Act. The president simply invoked the authorities he has in a statute of federal law, and that's what we did. This administration is following the law. We're using the law to make this country safer, unlike the last administration, who not only ignored the law, Lawrence, they violated the law with misuse of parole. We're making this country safe again, one illegal alien at a time. We're going to keep doing it.
Tom, I know you've been doing this job over 30 years amongst Democrats and Republican presidents. There was a judge that talked about the treatment, and he said something that I think you're going to take great umbrage with. This is what the judge said.
The point here was that there were plane loads of people. I mean, it was also a class action. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act than this happened here.
Is that true, Tom?
No, we follow every procedure within the Aliens Enemy Act. Maybe we need to read that act. We did the right thing. I'm not aware of every single case, but I've been told by highest levels of ICE that every one of those Venezuelans that plane was TDA based on hours of investigations, anywhere from criminal investigations to wiretaps to witnesses statement. They put a lot of effort in this, and I've been guaranteed that every one of the Venezuelans remember TDA. And again, they're a designated terrorist organization. And I'm sick of these radical judges. Why do they talk to Lincoln Riley's family? What due process does she have? Talk to the other young women that were raped and murdered in this country by TDA members. Talk to the family young lady that was burned alive on a subway. We did the right thing. We're keeping President Trump's promise. We're going to arrest every one of these people. And again, we're not going to arrest every one of them out of this country. This is what the President Trump promised American people. We're going to do this every day, 24/7 across this country without apology. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Tom, I only got a few seconds left, but before I go, I just want you to make it clear to our audience why you guys don't release all the information that you gather through intelligence. You put the law enforcement as well as the sources at risk when you release them, right?
You're exactly right. We got to protect the confidential sources. We also have to protect our law enforcement methods. We can't tell everybody how we do this because it's law enforcement sensitive information. We need the element of surprise. We need to find the most dangerous people in the world that are walking the streets of the United States. There are a lot of law enforcement sensitive methods we use. We got to protect our sources. We got to protect the confidential informants that have given up statements to us. So this is what we do. We do it well, and we're going to keep doing it, Lawrence.
It's an entire criminal enterprise that's paying for these guys to get out. When you start talking, then the criminal knows what you're going to do, and people die as a result of that. You guys are doing a great job. Tom, thanks so much for joining the program. All right, now to this. The Trump administration is invoking the state secrets privilege as it refuses to give a judge more information on the migrant deportation flights to El Salvador.
Griff Jennings is live in Washington with more.
Good morning, guys. And late yesterday, here's what happened. Attorney General Pam Bondi signed a document formally announcing the administration is invoking the state secrets privilege to prevent the government from having to disclose national security information in open court after declarations from Secretary of State Rubio and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem were made to Bondi, but District Judge James Boasberg wants answers about these flights to El Salvador after rejecting a request to lift a temporary block on those deportations under the Alien Enemies Act. He wrote this: because the named plaintiffs dispute that they are members of Tren de Aragua, they may not be deported until a court has been able to decide the merits of their challenge. Now, at issue is whether Judge Boasberg overstepped his authority when ordering the government to return more than 250 suspected TDA gang members back to the U.S., even as military planes carrying those migrants were already outside U.S. airspace. So now this three-judge D.C. Appeals Court panel will make that determination, and they appear split on whether the flights should continue, with Obama-appointed Judge Patricia Millett blasting the use of the wartime authority.
The point here was that there were plane loads of people, and it was also, it's a class action. There were plane loads of people. There were no procedures in place to notify people. Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act. This happened here.
But Judge Justin Walker, a Trump appointee, seemed more empathetic to the DOJ's arguments in his questioning, while that third judge, appointed by President George H.W. Bush, Karen Henderson, asked no questions. We really aren't sure, guys, where she'll come down. They can rule any time, and they could rule narrowly or more broadly. We just have to wait and find out. And don't forget, the losing side can also try and fast-track this to the Supreme Court.
That's right.
They certainly will.
Yeah, it's almost a given whoever loses.
Yeah.
You know, is it, Griff, is it true that they've already picked the Supreme Court justice that would hear it? And it's Elena Kagan?
We do not know that. There's some speculation. And look, we also don't know, Brian, really whether we can get a one-sentence order today or whether or not we will get, in coming days, a much broader ruling that will instruct perhaps future judges hearing cases like this in these circumstances. So a lot of unknowns right now.
Yeah, could be broad, could be narrow. Griff, thank you. You know, I must say, Judge Mallet, I don't think we've expressed an appropriate level of rage for what she said. Yes, you are entitled to a hearing unless it's the Alien Enemies Act, where it's special wartime powers that mean the alien does not get a hearing. But Nazis got better treatment, okay? Homan said Laken Riley didn't get due process. Rachel Warren, a mother of four, did not get a modicum of due process when she was slaughtered out for a run. Nor did Ngari, that little girl who went to a convenience store. So when the judge talks about Nazis and TDA, I can tell you the average American hears the young girls and mothers who have lost their lives who didn't get any due process.
Well, and to that point, Kaylee, they're still in the country right now. I take you to this operation that Tom Homan just did in Boston. Look at the law right here. You got 3 counts of aggravated rape against a child right here, a victim under 9, assault rape, a mass armed robbery, child rape again. By the way, released on bail for $500. Then you got cocaine and fentanyl trafficking across the country. This is just one city in the country that has a mayor that wants to defend them. The governor claims that it's not a sanctuary city. A sanctuary state. But obviously, these people found the sanctuary there.
And one of the things that the administration has done is they're trying to figure out, okay, how can we get the people out of the country as quickly as possible? And we have heard that from Tom Homan from the get-go, even before he assumed the position. And so they're using this Enemies and Aliens Act from the 1700s to try to do it. They knew, from my sources in the administration, they knew it was going to get adjudicated. It was going to go through the courts.
They just want finality. They want the American judicial system to say, okay, you can do it this way or you can do it that way. And then they're going to do it that way, whatever it is, in a big way.
So yesterday, over the weekend, they just wanted to stress how Donald Trump is threatening to ignore the courts, which is in Arizona.
True.
Every single Sunday show focused on that except for Shannon's. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, in action big time in Boston, announced the arrest of 370 in the surrounding areas. He said on X they traveled to Boston on Tuesday, as promised, kicking off a 5-day operation. It was pointed out by the governor, pleased to work with ICE. We're not a sanctuary state. We have sanctuary cities in our state. Here's Tom Homan.
One case, there was a child rape. He was released 2 years ago without on a retainer. It took us 2 years to find this person. So how many children did he attack in the last 2 years? All we're asking for is let our agent in the jail, would you lock somebody up? And let us arrest them there when you're done with them, rather than release them back in the public and making a public safety issue out of it. Mayor Wu in Boston said I was lying under oath, I was lying about the city. Well, we went to that city, we went to the surrounding counties around that city, and you look what we did in 5 days. We got a lot of work to do. We're not done. We're going back. And I said we're going to keep going back until every illegal alien public safety threats removed, not from Massachusetts, from the country. We're going to make this country safer. President Trump made a promise, and we're going to keep President Trump's promise.
You know, and one of the things that ICE and Tom Homan are doing is the fact that when they sweep up 370 criminals, alien criminals, and the people of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts say, why exactly doesn't our state or why doesn't our city cooperate with ICE to get these people off the streets? Why don't they do that? The people, you know, they don't have a good answer.
Yeah, you know, Tom Homan, if you look at the data Bill Melugin put out, I just did some like rough calculator math of the 33,000 that they've apprehended illegal immigrants, and you look at those who have pending criminal charges or are convicted of crimes, 73.4% of people Tom Homan has wrapped up around the country have pending criminal charges or criminal convictions. That is pretty good.
If you notice now, the administration with that bus, you can see the names of them. It's because there's too much coordination been going on. You release the names, you get all the information out there, the criminals are onto you. So now the administration, they tried to be transparent. The leaks were happening all over the place, and they're coordinating with the criminals. So now they're holding it until they wrap up everybody, and then maybe we'll start doing something. I just want our community to be safe.
Yeah, it just said President Trump, the Massachusetts State Police were brought to the White House and recognized by Trump and Attorney General Bondi for their partnership. So Governor Maura Healey trying to go out of the way to say, don't think we're all like Boston, which is interesting because she's a Democrat. I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. In striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch, the Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really, it's been an amazing period of time this last hour. There are people elated all over the country. I've seen such happiness and spirit. Sometimes you don't see that, but this case is very important. I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers. It was a grave threat to democracy, frankly, and instead of merely ruling on the immediate cases before them, these judges have attempted to dictate the law for the entire nation. In practice, this meant that if any one of the nearly 700 federal judges disagreed with the policy of the duly elected president of the United States, he or she could block that policy from going into effect or at least delay it for many years, tied up in the court system. This was a colossal abuse of power which never occurred in American history prior to recent decades. And we've been hit with more nationwide injunctions than were issued in the entire 20th century.
together. Think of it, more than the entire 20th century, me. I'm grateful to the Supreme Court for stepping in and solving this very, very big and complex problem, and they've made it very simple. I want to thank Justice Barrett, who wrote the opinion brilliantly, as well as Chief Justice Roberts, and Justices Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas. Great people. Thanks for this decision, and thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War was meant for the babies of slaves. It was so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies, and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries, and numerous other priorities of the American people. We have so many of them. I have a whole list. I'm not going to bore you, and I'm going to have Pam get up and say a few words, but there's really, she can talk as long as she wants, because this is a very important decision. This is a decision that covers a tremendous amount of territory. But I want to just thank again the Supreme Court for this ruling. It's a giant. It's a giant. And they should be very proud, and our country should be very proud of the Supreme Court today. And with that, I'd like you to listen to the words of Pam Bondi. She's an incredible Attorney General. We're very proud of her. And as you know, Todd Blanche is with us, and we have so many others that worked on this case and other cases. And I think they're doing a great job. Pam, please say a few words.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans. Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts, and 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies, from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer. And on immigration, and on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrests today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors. They vetoed all of President Trump's power, and they cannot do that. This has been a bipartisan problem that
that has lasted 5 presidential terms, 5 different presidents, and it has ended today. We will continue to fight for President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible. Our Solicitor General's office, John Sowers, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovey. Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major ruling today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no longer will they have this power in our country. It is the president's authority under his executive branch to do everything to fight for the American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Today's a great day for the rule of law. It's a great day for the Justice Department, and it's one that's been a long time coming, and one that every American should have been waiting for with bated breath. And so I echo what the President said and Attorney General Bondi, that the Supreme Court did a great thing today, not only for this administration, but for every American in this country. If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to decide their child's education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight. We thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it, but that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off today, but over the past few weeks. We had a stay of an order that prevented DHS from moving aliens to a third country. We had a stay of an order that stopped the Department of Defense from implementing military readiness, the EO that President Trump signed. We had another stay of an order forcing reinstatement of fired executive branch employees, entirely within the President in Article 2 his right to do. We had a stay of, as you all know, of numerous DOJ cases. And again, every one of those stays requires a tremendous amount of work and effort by the lawyers and parties involved. And they should be doing other work. They should be doing the work that the President and this administration demands and has a right to demand, and not fighting these local judges who don't make decisions based on the law. They make decisions because they just simply don't agree with the administration's decision about policy, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Attorney General. So, as you know, the Supreme Court did not rule on the underlying constitutionality of the President's birthright citizenship order. So, what is the plan now? Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes. And I guess it could come down. I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win. But most likely, that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon, not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting on that in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
We're very confident in the Supreme Court, but again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Attorney General, thank you for being here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO goes at a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions, and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban, just for explanation purposes, why?
Sure, because that's going to come down in October in the separate. This was huge because it's indirectly impacted today. As I said, it's now case by case. Let me reiterate, of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as President of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy. These 5 districts, and yes, it indirectly impacts us. It will be a separate decision in October. Next question.
Mr. President, a question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that. But this is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state or a liberal judge or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country. Should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country. And we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Just a Tony Bear. Sir, I know that you praised her and her opinion here in this case. She has taken some heat, though, from some of your supporters who have played her weak, a squishy, a rattled law professor. What is your take on that?
I don't know about that. I just have great respect for her. I always have. And her decision was brilliantly written today, from all accounts.
Transgender
what would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
This way brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about. And this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Illegal crossings in the border are 0 now.
0? Does everyone hear that?
Trump 2028!
Do you understand, President Trump?
I like him. He's working the cameras.
In reality, President Trump, in the border, do you intend to engage personally with leaders from South America, not only Central America, in order to tackle the situation in a way, and if you have a perspective of meeting some presidents from South America, as Brazil, for example?
Let me share, as an example, not South America, but NATO over the weekend. They have great respect for our country now. They did things that nobody thought was possible. They took funding from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought they'd have to pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. It's over $1 trillion more a year. Think of that, $1 trillion. Nobody thought that could happen. It's a different group of people, different countries. But we get along with a lot of countries. We are respected again. Our country, the U.S., is respected again. Was not respected 6 months ago.
Mr. President, you have a deadline coming up on trade in 2 weeks. Which country would on trade on tariffs?
Yeah.
Which countries, if any, are close to agreements with the administration?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal with probably 4 or 5 different countries. With the UK, it was a great deal for both. And we're in the process of making some others. But ultimately, Scott is here. Howard Lutnick, these 2 guys have been doing an incredible job, and the people that work with them have been doing an incredible job. But you know, we have 200 countries, you could say 200 countries plus. We can't do that. So at a certain point over the next week and a half or so, or maybe before, we're going to send out a letter. We talked to many of the countries, so we're just going to tell them what they have to pay to do business in the United States. And it's going to go very quickly. But some of the bigger countries, so India, I think we're going to reach a deal where we have the right to go in and trade. And right now it's restricted. You can't walk in there, you can't even think about it. We're looking to get a full trade barrier dropping, which is unthinkable. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but as of this moment, we're going to agree to that, go into Indian trade. We're going to be trading in China. That's going to come a little bit down the road, but we're going to be trading in China. We have a lot of great things going, and we're getting along with countries, but some will be disappointed. because they're going to have to pay tariffs. And we've taken in already hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. No inflation. The only problem we have is we have a Fed guy that doesn't understand what's happening, and it would be great if he'd lower the rate because we'd be able to borrow a lot cheaper. Why do we keep it on this subject? This is such a big subject. You know what? Trade is so big, but this, I don't know, in a certain way, this might be bigger than trade. I think this is bigger than trade. Yes, please, go ahead.
You know, if you could, sir, on the transgender ruling, the Supreme Court ruling that parents with religious objections can withhold their kids out of public school lessons that use LGBTQ materials. Pam brought it up. Your reaction to that ruling today, sir?
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am surprised that it went this far. It took us to bring life back to normal. So wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give you back your parental rights. They were taken away, and this is a tremendous victory for parents. Yeah.
Mr. President, if you look at the back of the last week, it's been extraordinary in terms of the action in the Middle East. You were at The Hague. I'm wondering now, I'm wondering now if you believe that Iran. I'm wondering now, sir, if you believe that Iran has given up its long history of ambitions with nuclear weapons, or what you would like to see from that group that they do, and what type of meetings is your administration looking for next week with Iran?
So Iran wants to meet. As you know, their sites were obliterated. They're very evil nuclear sites, and now has been proven. We had some fake news for a little while. The same people that covered the Hunter Biden laptop was from Russia. The same people that did 3 or 4 other Russia hoax. No, wait, just listen. They came up with something that delayed the credit that our great pilots and these great what talent that was, and they hit it right down in the spot. 52,000 feet. Think of this dark, no moon, you couldn't see a thing. And they hit the refrigerator door, as they say. That's the size of a target. And overwhelmingly, and it's amazing what was done. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we took out the 2 of the other sites also, in addition to that. We finished them all. That was very evil adventure. I believe that, and again, time will tell, but I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear anytime soon. They spent over $1 trillion on nuclear, and they never got it together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way. To do that is very dangerous. It's very, very heavy material. Those cars were most likely the cars of Masons because they were pouring concrete at the top, at the hatch, as you know, the hatch going into the nuclear site. They wanted to reinforce it, and they had some Masons there pouring concrete. By the way, that concrete was obliterated. It hit exactly at the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry, but everything's down there. It's under millions of tons of rock.
Your administration concerned that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere. So why didn't you get temporary protective status in that country? Was it part of the deal?
Well, we'll take a look. We've had a great relationship with El Salvador. They have a fantastic leader. They built a massive prison system. And I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system. And we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out. And frankly, when they hear they have to go there, they become very nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough system, but it's a brilliant system. And it's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador. A lot of respect.
As you go into negotiations and talks with Iran, are you demanding not only that there would be no uranium production inside of Iran, but also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles of uranium?
Well, we're a little early for that, but something like that, yeah, we'll do something like that. Let me say that I've been saying for 25 years, even as a civilian, you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. And that's what happened. It's been obliterated. It would be years before they could ever get going. And I really think it's probably the last thing. They have to recover from a hell of a tough war.
Would you also be demanding that the IAEA have full rights to inspect in Iran?
Or somebody, yeah, or somebody that we respect, including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented, who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents? Or?
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
If you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be an enforcement priority?
The violent criminals in our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective. Today marked the 2,711th arrest in our country of TDA members, just TDA. Everyone in this room agrees they are one of the most violent criminal organizations in the world. And the Biden administration let them walk into our country for the last 4 years. 2,711 of them today have been arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs, and not one district court judge can think they're an emperor over this administration, his executive powers, and why the people of the United States elected him.
I just might add one thing, and they used birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels, to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War in the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. You take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to, when people didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years. But they've used it, the cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in. And what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
On your tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators are racing to rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian ruled that sections of it were outside of the process that they're using to get this through. Do you think that senators should respect the decisions of the parliamentarian? And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes?
Well, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think of what they're not approving. They're not approving border security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some more. We have to do, various things. We have no money for that. We have no money for the border. We have no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'd be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine. The parliamentarian's been a little difficult. And I would say that I disagree with the parliamentarian on some things, and on other ways she's been fine. But we'll have to see. It's a big issue. I will tell you this: if that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 68% tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it. That means you're voting in favor, because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country. And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by $1.7 trillion, and it won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with
What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because as you know, we're taking in hundreds of millions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to it's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in, I had a call from somebody in the House and high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do you mean by the books? The money coming in is so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what's it? There's so much money coming in, and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake. We have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. Calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in $88 billion in tariffs. They have so much money coming in. But more important than the money coming in, we have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia, we went to Qatar, we went to UAE, very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders, and we took in $5.1 trillion just there. Without the tariffs, I mean, they also like the thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election, now you have it go over. But even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide. And they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, we're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because if I ever took the tariffs off, then we were going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody that, like this communist from New York, someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communist, except it's so bad for New York, but the rest of the country is revolting against it. But if somebody got elected, they're afraid that this was taken off. Well, we're going to guarantee it's never going to be taken off. And again, we're taking in think of this, hundreds of billions of dollars, and they were all confused because they've never seen this before. You know, they don't have enough money. So much money is coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. But most importantly, we have factories being built, car plants being built, companies moving to our country like never before. If you look at 15 trillion, and that's only in a few months. You know, I haven't been here that long. Presidents, like the last one, was a disaster. He's the worst president in the history of our country, by the way. What he did on our border can never, ever be forgotten. And to me, that's the worst of all the things. And he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him, because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country, and you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay with you?
There's some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of a trillion, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charged us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year to one trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them. And they don't like it. So they're upset. Because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Well, they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go away. But,
On the 2020 election, is there any more information on the special prosecutor? So many Americans still have questions about the 2020 election. And speaking of rogue judges, would you consider appointing somebody at DOJ maybe to investigate the judges that allowed for the political persecution of you, your family, and your supporters during the Biden administration?
I love you. Who are you?
I'm Farrah from Lindell TV.
Well, that's just a very nice question. And it's not a setup. I have no idea who you are, but I appreciate that question. All I can say is we're not here for that. I hope so. I hope they're doing things because that election was rigged and stolen, and we can't allow that to happen. A lot of people tell me, sir, you just won the greatest election in the history of our country. You won it numbers that won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything. Sir, go on with your life. And many people that say that, good people, friends of mine, many are people that say that same thing, go on with your life, but you have to find out what happened because you can't let that happen again. Look at what this lunatic did. Look at what he did. He opened our borders to people that were murderers, 11,888 to be exact, murderers, and we've captured many of those murderers. And we're bringing them back, or some of them are so dangerous that we don't even want to bring them back. We're afraid they're going to try and come back in. But he allowed people to come into this country, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, that's a mental institution on steroids, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, people, jails, being emptied out into our country. Venezuela emptied out almost its entire prison population into our country. But I don't want to blame them. Many countries have done that. The Congo, we have a great press conference coming up later, and it's the Congo and Rwanda. They were fighting for years, and it was machetes, it was vicious, it was as vicious, people's heads being chopped off. And I have a man who's very good in that part of the world, very smart, and put them together, and we're signing a peace treaty today. First time in many years they're going to have peace. And it's a big deal. We talk about Russia, and we're working that one. President Putin called up and he said, I'd love to help you with Iran. I said, do me a favor. I'll handle Iran. Help me with Russia. We got to get that one settled. And I think something's going to happen there. But we did some great work. India and Pakistan. That was going to be maybe nuclear. We did that. We did a lot of work. I don't know if there's ever been a precedent that's done much more. Serbia, Kosovo is going to go at it, going to be a big war. I said, you go at it, there's no trade with the United States. They said, well, maybe we won't go at it. That's what happened with India and Pakistan. I was negotiating with both of them, and I said to Scott, I said to Howard, cancel all deals with India and Pakistan. They're not trading with us because they're in a war. They called back, what do we do? I said, look, you want to have trade with the United States, it's great. But you want to go and start using nuclear weapons on each other, we're not going to allow them. And they both agreed. Both have great leaders. They both agreed not to do it. So we did a lot, but I appreciate that question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. President. I was just speaking with Senator Ron Johnson on the One Big Beautiful Bill, and he says he really wants to get to yes for you.
and get this accomplished.
He does. He's a good man.
But he also said that he needs more time, and he is not certain that the July 4th deadline is
Well, then he's not such a good man.
because there's too much work to
No,
do.
he's a good man. Ron Johnson's doing a good job. He's very committed. Every Republican senator is committed. And, you know, you could have a couple of grandstanders, in all fairness. You could have somebody else. And it's very dangerous because our country would go from being the most successful country in the world to who knows what happens with a 68%, think of it, 68% tax increase. That was given by the Democrats because they like high taxes. I don't know what happened. You know, all my life, I'd grow up and I'd watch politicians talking and say, oh, that's fun. And they were always saying, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your taxes. I never heard it. They say, we will raise your taxes. And they elect people like this guy in New York that maybe has a chance. I find it hard to believe, but he maybe has a chance. They want to raise your taxes. So they want to see a 68% tax increase. That's more money than anybody can afford. You go into a depression if that ever happened. So I think there's a lot of pressure to get that approved.
How important is the July 4th deadline to you? If
It's important. It's not the end all. It can go longer, but we'd like to get it done by that time, if possible. Look, we have a lot of very committed people, and they feel very strongly about a subjects that you're not even thinking about, that are important to Republicans. The problem we have is that it's a great bill. It's a popular bill, but we'll get no Democrats only because they don't want to vote for Trump. If that bill was their bill, oh, they would be so happy. It's so great for our military. It's great for everything. And they would normally vote, but because their hatred of Trump, they have Trump derangement syndrome at levels never seen before. And instead of voting for a tax cut, they're voting for a tax increase of 68%. They're voting to destroy Social Security, destroy Medicare, and destroy Medicaid. And we're voting to make them perfect and to make them better, make them stronger and better. They're going to destroy Medicaid, and they're going to destroy Medicare, and Social Security will follow. If you vote for the Democrats, you're dead on those three things.
Thank you, Mr. President. On a related subject, many Democrats have said that they are not going to support crypto bills in Congress only because of you and your family's personal crypto ventures. And these votes are in some cases needed to pass. Are you open to the idea of pulling away from your personal crypto ventures just for the next 2 years if that helps get these crypto bills passed in the next few months?
Well, it's a very funny thing, crypto. So I became a fan of crypto, and to me it's an industry. I view it as an industry, and I'm president. And if we didn't have it, China would, or somebody else would, but most likely China would love to. And we've dominated that industry. It's a big industry, by the way. In fact, when the stock market went down recently, crypto and Bitcoin and all of that went down much less than anybody else as a group. And we've created a very powerful industry, and that's much more important than anything that we invest in. We invest in it, but really that was an industry that wasn't doing particularly well. I got involved with it a couple of years ago, and before the second term. I got involved before I decided to run. I only decided to run because I saw what was happening, and Biden was incompetent, and the administration was crooked and incompetent, and I was in Bitcoin then, not knowing if I was going to do it a third time. So it's become amazing. I mean, it's the jobs that it produces, and I notice more and more you pay in Bitcoin. I mean, people are saying it takes a lot of pressure off the dollar, and it's a great thing for our country. So I don't care about investing. You know, I have I have kids, and they invest in different things. They do believe in it. But I'm president, and what I did do there is build an industry that's very important. And you know, if we didn't have it, China would. Okay. Sir, Mr. With the glasses, gentlemen, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, are you going to cut funds in the central states, like for instance California, that keep supporting illegal immigration and the district?
We're giving them a hard time.
And also, for the policy question.
They don't have a governor in California. They have a man that wants to give away everything to people that nobody's seen before. If we didn't go into Los Angeles with the military, which did a fantastic job, but if we didn't go into Los Angeles, bringing in the National Guard, I would have brought the military if it was necessary, because we have to. We have the right to. That was another thing upheld by the Supreme Court. But if we didn't go in with the National Guard and be strong and tough, you wouldn't maybe have a Los Angeles. It would be like the rest of California, the rest of Los Angeles. They lost 25,000 houses in a fire. They should have lost none. You know, I sent the water down. I had to break into their water supply because they just refused to do it. They're crazy. There's something wrong with them. They have plenty of water. They don't have droughts or anything. They have plenty. We let it come down from the Pacific Northwest. They routed all the water out into the Pacific Ocean for environmental reasons, okay? And now you have 25,000 houses, none of which would have burned down if you had the water. They didn't have water. They didn't have water for the fire pumps. They didn't have water in the sprinkler systems that people... So the answer is we're going to work with governors. We're going to work with radical left Democrats and Democrats. And we're going to make it good for everybody. We'll have to stop the crime in those... in the case of the cities, I think I can say just about all cities with heavy crime are run by Democrats. Go ahead. Yeah, with the glasses. Go ahead, yes. Yeah, but no, the man behind you, yeah, please.
President Trump, thank you, Mashak from Lebanon. I want to ask you regarding the threats posed by Iran's allies and proxies operating in the U.S. They were threatening your life. So what do you say about that? And regarding the Lebanon, because Hezbollah is as well part of Iran's ally, is there any time frame in Lebanon regarding disarming Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Yeah. Lebanon is a great place with brilliant people. You know, it was known for the professors and doctors and had an incredible history. And hopefully we can bring it back again. I just appointed a friend of mine who's Lebanese. And I didn't know he was Lebanese. I've known him for 20 years. Very, very successful man. And I just appointed him. And I said, why would you want that? He said, because I was born there, I was raised there, I love it. I love it so much. I said, you know, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon as ambassador. And he said, that's what they say, but I don't care about danger. I mean, this is a guy that is just a very big business guy. He wants to give up his whole life to go to Lebanon because he believes in it so much. We're with Lebanon all the way. We'll try and straighten it out. Threaten my life, yeah, they have threatened. I get that throbbing feeling every once in a while. Get that throbbing feeling, but you know what? That's okay. It is a dangerous business. What I do is a dangerous business. You know, I tell the story of the car companies and different people in different professions. You have race car drivers as an example. 1/10 of 1% die. Bull riders, 1/10 of 1%. That's not a lot, but it's people die. When you're president, it's about 5%. If somebody would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have run. Okay? This is a very dangerous profession. By the way, so many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it. Go ahead. You tell me when it gets boring. Are you shots. These guys are unbelievable. From 52,000 feet, they hit the equivalent of a refrigerator door. They actually hit it right in the center, so it's much lower than that. And just bomb after bomb going deeper, deeper, blowing up. Incredible, incredible. And I don't know if you heard the general, he was very impressive. Raising Cain. You know, he's the one that beat ISIS for me. And he did it in a matter of weeks. And I was told it was going to take 4 or 5 years. And when I got this job, I always said, if I get this job, I'm going to put that guy as the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And Dan Cain, and he, when I heard his name was Raisin, his nickname was Raisin Cain. I said, you got to be kidding. So I left him right from the beginning, but he knocked out ISIS in a time that nobody ever thought possible. And when this attack was completed and so successful, I said, now I know how you knocked out ISIS so quickly. But we have the best people, we have the best equipment in the world, and I rebuilt the military during my 4 years, during my other term. We have the best equipment in the world. The problem is we gave away, you know, a lot of it, but small, relatively speaking. We gave a lot of it away to Afghanistan. Shouldn't have happened. It very small compared to what we have. Now we have a great military with great people. Okay.
President, congratulations. A couple of very different questions. One is Rwanda 1994, as you grew up in on how horrific those attacks were. Congratulations on that treaty. There are talks that perhaps...
That's going to take place today at 3 o'clock in the Oval Office. We're going to have a signing with Rwanda and the Congo. I'm a little bit, I don't mind being in that one because I didn't know too much about it. I knew one thing, they were going at it for many years, and the shades, it is one of the worst wars that anyone's ever seen. And I just happened to have somebody who was able to get it settled. I mean, just a brilliant person who is very comfortable in that part of the world. Somebody being here is part of the world. I said, you uncomfortable with it? People are being killed, school children are being raided and killed. And I don't even want to say how, but as viciously as I've ever heard. Are you uncomfortable? No, it's part of the world that I know. Very comfortable. I was able to get them together and sell it. And not only that, we're getting from the United States a lot of the mineral rights from the Congo. We're so honored to be here. I never thought they'd be coming to. Look, this is a very tough part of the world. They never thought, they were just telling me, they never thought they'd ever be coming to the White House. And they're so honored. And so we're going to give them a great big reception. But that's after many years of fighting. It's a great thing. That's a great block, I believe.
Oh.
Secret nuclear site?
Yes, there might be some of those.
Can I tell you? They're exhausted. And Israel's exhausted too. And I know them both of them. And they both wanted to excel, both of them. And we did a great job, but they're exhausted. The last thing they're thinking about right now is nuclear. You know what they're thinking of? They're thinking about tomorrow, trying to live with such a mess. It's such a mess. The place was bombed to hell. And no, I'm not worried about it at all. And I'm putting out a little statement. I'm going to respond to the Ayatollah's statement yesterday that we won the war. We won the war. He's a man of great faith. Man who's highly respected in this country. You have to tell the truth. We got beat to hell. And Israel was beat up too. We were both beat up. And it was a great time to end it. It was great. They got the hate out. There was a lot of hate. A lot of hate. It would be great if they didn't have that hate. But the last thing they're thinking about is nuclear weapons.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Rose Powell with NTV Research Radio with Delmark Times. Thank you. It's very refreshing for all of us here in this room. So refreshing. Very refreshing. Yes, we have So thank you so much for coming out here.
Other than Caroline's done a great job. You're referring to the past administration, not to Caroline.
Yes. Back to the ruling today, if you don't mind. So I've always talked about winning for the American people. How do you think today's ruling will enable you to further deliver for American families and workers across the country, not only when it comes to immigration, but also when it comes to trade, energy, what actions are you most eager to move
Well, I
forward?
think taking power away from these absolutely crazy radical left judges is a tremendous. This is such a big deal. This is such a big deal. It's like, it's sort of sad because we're doing the signing at 3 o'clock, and this may well dominate the signing of a big war that was going on and really affected the continent. Think of it, the entire continent of Africa was being affected. We're settling that war today, and this will probably be a headline. But this is a very big moment, and it gives power back to people that should have it, including Congress, including the presidency. And it only takes bad power away from judges. It takes bad power, sick power, and unfair power, and it's really going to be, it is a very monumental decision. Yeah, please.
Is that July 9th date set for tariffs to a snap, or could there be?
We can do whatever we want. We can extend it. We can make it shorter. I'd like to just send letters out to everybody. Congratulations, you're paying 25%. He's a much nicer person. So I can finish it up.
Considering for the Federal Reserve, and are you speeding up that process as executive?
Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible. same as us. Because, you know, if you have somebody sets their rate at 4% or 4.5%, it's hard to go out and say, we should be paying 1%, which one you have your so-called experts. And the second part is, you know, as for the question that you asked about tariffs, we had the tariffs, and we have less inflation than we had before. What we have is a hell of a lot more money, a hell of a lot more income, but we shouldn't be paying a rate like that. In other words, when we pay a rate, I think each point is the equivalent of $300 billion. So if we had it down 3 points, because I think we should be at 1, you have Switzerland is at 0.25, in other words, 25% of 1%. And they have a number 1 right there, but we should be the number 1. And soon you're going to have, I think you're going to have where the people will pay, you know, will pay, like we had a few years ago, where you put up money, you loan money, and I mean, you actually, instead of paying, you get paid. I love that. I don't know if it's any good, but I love it when you put up money and you get paid. But we should be in a category, so we should be at the top of the list, not toward the bottom of the list. But we have a man who's not a smart man, and probably has Trump derangement syndrome. And he's just not a smart person. What he's doing, though, he's hurting us for years to come. Because if we borrow money at 2 points higher than we should be paying, that's $600 billion. We need to say that's not the number it's got. So it's 2 points would be about 600, actually more than that, but about 600 billion, all because the guy doesn't want to lower the rates. He is doing the service, very concerned, and then he goes up and talks about, I'd like to see costs come down. You know, he gets up and he does his little thing for 5 minutes, and he goes out and he goes back to the beach. He goes, I'd like to see costs come down. Well, he could lower the interest costs by $900 billion a year. Why is he those lower rates? And everybody's saying, I was watching some of the business shows today, and they're saying, you know, Trump's right. He should really be cutting. The country's doing well. We have no inflation. Now, despite him, we're doing great. But if we got the rates down, we would be a rocket ship. So I think that'll be it. And I just want to thank everybody. This is a really big day. We've had a big week. You know, we've had a big week. We've had a lot of victories this week. NATO was a tremendous victory. The war was a tremendous. Look, we were talking about this for 30 years. Iran being nuclear. And all I said is, it will not be nuclear, and it's not going to be nuclear. And, I want to give credit to a lot of people, most importantly to our great military, boy, they put out that fire. Once that happened, once those bombs got dropped, that war was over. That war was over. But I just want to compliment them, incredible, the general and all of his generals. Pete Hegseth was great. And now I want to compliment Pam. Genius went into this. You know, people, you don't say it exactly right, but the Supreme Court doesn't get it because it's incorrectly spoken about, and that happens. A lot of cases are lost because they don't say the right words. But I want to correct. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. I may change my mind about that. Maybe someday I'll say, I was only kidding. She's going to go down as a great attorney general. This was a tremendous win, and we've had tremendous wins, but this was a tremendous win for me. So I just want to congratulate you and Todd and your whole staff. Very good with me. We can't forget John Sal, who was with, there's a medical emergency within his family, so he's taking care of that and his staff. So I just want to thank everybody very much. Thank you.
What are you doing? What? What are you doing? Well, are you getting your own juice? Yes. Go ahead. Wrong one. This is the cold one. Wait until it's cold. Ugh. What's up? Boom.
Thank you very much. Mike, this is fantastic.
This is fantastic, Mike.
We're going to see this coming for a while. Congratulations.
People are going to see this one coming for a while, Mike.
Very important.
That's what you said, eh?
Thank you very much, everybody. This
Hey,
is
Mike,
what
it's a good one.
we're going to be discussing.
Really?
Thank you very
Well,
much.
show us fucking here.
This is good news indeed.
What? You tired from
It
sitting here?
couldn't be done. No.
You think tired from the person?
I just have to send it.
Yes. Who?
It's
That's
it's-
right, that's Trump.
And it has to do with the California Auto Regulation, CRA. It's been a disaster for this country. And I want to thank everybody for being here. We officially rescue the U.S. auto industry from destruction by terminating California electric vehicle mandate once and for all. They said it couldn't be done, but boy, it's had us tied up in knots for years. And they passed these crazy rules in California would be 17 states would go by and the automakers didn't know what to do because they were really building cars for two countries. When you have 17 states, you're building cars for two countries. And I want to congratulate you all. The Senate passed the whole thing. It's incredible. I was going to sign a executive order and give it a shot. But
Love you.
one good thing with this, number one, it holds up forever. And number two, unless somebody votes it out, they'll never do that. And
Love you.
it's just so much better. It's so much better.
All right.
It's so great.
Bye.
We're joined today by the great Speaker of the House. I think he's going to go down as a great Speaker of the House. I may be wrong. I may be wrong. Who knows? Who the hell knows? I think he is. And he's doing something. The only thing I would say is more important than this one. And I'll tell you what, it's almost close. It's how big this is today. But the great, big, beautiful, I had the word great. The great, big, beautiful bill. It's going to be one of the most, I said it this morning to Ruth. I think it's the most important, one of the most important pieces of legislation ever signed. So it's going to be something very special. Thank you very much. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, thank you. Secretary Sean Duffy. And they had a problem in India there, and they're on that. Sean's doing a tremendous job. Secretary Chris Wright, everybody said you'd never be able to do that. He's the most talented man they say in the oil and gas industry. I'll let you know in about 2 years if that's true. Well, Doug Burgum, I wanted Doug Burgum to head up energy because he was so successful in North Dakota as governor. And he said, sir, there's one person who's much better than me. He said, who? He said, Chris Wright. I said, who the hell is Chris Wright? I had no idea. Now everyone knows Chris Wright. He's going to be more famous than me. But, Chris Wright. And if we could get him, he'd be better than I am, sir. And if you know Doug, Doug's not here, is he? If you knew Doug, he's always working someplace. But if you knew Doug, you'd know that he doesn't say that often. And he did. And Chris, you're doing great. But I don't like that oil prices have gone up just a little bit over the last few days. I was going to call and just really start screaming at you. Are we okay? Nothing wrong, right? It's going to keep going down a little bit, right? Because we have inflation under control perfectly. You probably saw the records. Everyone's on television saying, what's going on? You're right. All of these things. We've taken in $88 billion in tariffs in 2 months. $88 billion with no inflation. And it was smart. They won't be. Now, we'd like to get this guy to lower interest rates. Because, if he doesn't, we have a lot of short-term debt. Obama, short-term, long-term cheap debt. But a lot of the debt comes through is So it comes to it's very, very simple. And if we would lower the interest rates by 1 point, we pay about 1 point less. That's $300 billion a year. Pay $600 billion a year. That's for years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever we make it. But we can't get this guy to do it. And the fake news is saying, oh, if you fired him, it would be so bad. It would be so bad. I don't know why it would be so bad, but I'm not going to fire him. I just want him to, here we call him Too Late. Too Late is like Too Tall Jones. He's Too Tall, T-O-O. Supreme Court has delivered a monumental victory for the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the rule of law. In striking down the excessive use of nationwide injunctions to interfere with the normal functioning of the executive branch, the Supreme Court has stopped the presidency itself. That's what they've done. And really it's been
and make sure none of y'all, you know what I'm saying, and destroy your whole bloodline. You know what I'm saying? And that's a hard pill to swallow, man. You know what I'm saying? You gotta that goes back. Why y'all think Shitty turned himself in? After what he did to Nipsey, he knew when he did it, he didn't turn himself in. They was gonna knock down anybody that was related to him. And if you got loved ones, you out here gangbanging, any job, if you out here gangbanging, is to protect your loved ones. Don't have them in the, don't go with your street. Because a lot of y'all get out here putting in work. You should not be riding in the car with your mom. Going to no mall with your grandmother. You should be going to no restaurants with your sister. None of that. And some shit, because all it takes is, appreciate the super sticker. You know, all it takes is for somebody to catch you going to that car and blow that thing out. You see what I'm saying? I lost a homegirl, a close homegirl of mine, man. Her name was TT. We did this song called Ride or Die. And I remember I was in the studio and I was writing her verse. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, they love her voice. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people didn't believe I wrote the song, and I wrote it. And when I wrote it, I sung it. She was like, bro, this gonna be a hit. Hit the song, man. We was finna gear up to do some big things with the record. You know, she was tired of being in the studio grinding with this music with me. Hang with her nigga, and shit, man. You know, she was in the car with her nigga, and I guess he got into some altercations and some shit, and a shootout happened. And he happened to survive, and she got shot in her head. You see what I'm saying? And that was one of the coldest days, because I'm like, I was telling her, like, nah, nigga, we gotta, nigga, they looking at us right now. We gotta stay in the studio, you know, and rest in peace, TT, man. Y'all go check out Ride or Die, man. It's on my YouTube channel. It's on Apple, Spotify. Check out the song, man. It's a dope record. You know, it's crazy, man. It's 10 years old, and it's booming. It's still doing numbers on TikTok and every major platform. It's one of the biggest records I ever put out. But, yeah, it's important, man. Y'all go check out that song, man. But, yeah, she got shot in her head, man. Just, you know, being with her dude at the wrong place at the wrong time. And, man, it was crazy. So, yeah, y'all gotta be mindful, man. Like, the niggas out here in California, man, if they catch you, I think it's curtains. You know what I'm saying? They don't care who in the car. You see what I'm saying? Nigga, if your mama in the car, you see what I'm saying? Take that. You know what I'm saying? She gonna catch some too. Because you know how California is, man. If you fuck with them, you stuck with them. You better duck with them. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
And the man wants to be in there and out of pocket, you feel me? I deleted the videos off of TikTok, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, music.
Not because I'm scared or nothing like that, but because that's just, you feel me? Y'all are right. That ain't no energy that you want to put out in the universe. That wasn't me wishing, you know, or praying on the dead.
Tiger. Good night. Love you.
I respect it. What y'all think, chat? What y'all think? Y'all think this sincere? You know what I'm saying? He got a little grin on his face, but, you know, listen, man, I don't care if a nigga press you or not. You know what I'm saying? You still got a choice. So he decided to, as a man, to get on here and apologize. You So I'm saying, yeah, I'm pretty sure the fuck is pressed because of the DM. Yes, I'm damn near 1,000% sure they pressed him. But at the same time, you know, it's enough for him to be like, so what, nigga, I ain't doing none of that. You know what I'm saying? But it's up to be a man, be mature about it. And, you know, it takes a lot of balls to even come do some shit like that. Even if some niggas told nigga like, hey, bro, you know, you don't want to be playing with shit like that. The power of the tongue speak life and death, man. You know, you laughing about something like this, and you ain't even had no real beef with him. I think the whole thing was he didn't know before extra's personal. This wasn't no situation where, you know, he slapped you or, you know, you seen him face to face. This was primarily on some internet-ish, and you clowning, thinking it was funny as if you had a real hatred for a nigga you ain't never met. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know how this shit go, man. Niggas gonna talk about you. They gonna talk about you, man. They gonna call you a buster, a mark, all that weird ass shit. That comes with being a content creator. So I'm saying you gotta have thick skin to be playing on this platform. To really make it on this platform, you gotta have thick skin because nigga they say anything. They can say, oh, man, that boy like chili on his hot dog. Oh yeah, that nigga boy. That nigga laying on that bed, the ass wide open. You know what I'm saying? They gonna talk about you, bro. That's just you can't handle somebody talking about you on this internet. I don't care what they say. You should not be on this motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? You in a way. Because this internet will destroy people. I don't care what nobody say, bro. I remember me starting off on this motherfucker. I seen it was a time where a nigga put a bra on my chest. I had a photo with my shirt off. A nigga put some lipstick on my lips and a bra on my chest. And I remember I loved it. I said, oh my motherfucking God. Hell no. I'm like, man, somebody, hey, get me on the phone with this nigga. What's the nigga Instagram? And nigga, I was losing that shit. Then after a certain amount of time, I don't give a fuck. Nigga, I ain't never wore a bra or lipstick in my life. But that, I remember, nigga be, man, dirty politicking on this motherfucker though, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Nigga be, well, listen. So you gotta have thick skin for this, man. You know, everybody gonna talk about everybody. And you gotta be ready for this shit. You see what I'm saying? Cause in the streets, you know, you get mad, you get out when you get mad at. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people realize that the shootouts in broad daylight is something called emotional killers. Majority of the time, the shootouts, the drive-bys, these rivals, nigga, you know, they're emotional killers. You know what I'm saying? Nigga say some hurt your feelings, and a nigga pull that trigger, but you know, you just had a newborn baby, and you know what I'm saying? You go to church with your mama, but you just lost it because you couldn't control your emotions. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, niggas just, I think he's sincere, man. Bottom line, I think Aaron Plummer's sincere, but, you know, hopefully he cleaned this shit up, you know what I'm saying? So he don't have to worry about them boys on his head. Let's go.
I told him back, you feel me? I didn't think it was real, you know what I'm saying? And I was out of pocket in a real way, you feel me? Should nobody be rejoicing over somebody losing, you know, something like that, something so sentimental. And especially that's how you take care of your bills and your family. And once I seen my boys pick the GoFundMe up, that was definitely so, hey man, as a man, I can admit that I was wrong, you feel me? Y'all know, I always try to be on some funny shit, I always come here and make what you think, bro. You think he thought it was real? You think this shit just getting serious? You probably reached out like, bro, that wasn't no real shit.
Right, hey, he knew it was real. Hey, look, hey, come on, bro. I think the press, man, when he seen so many people got on his head, like, hey, you know, you got a big platform, everybody watch you. It's kind of immature for you to be out here calling that nigga 4 nubs and all that shit, and you talking about let's play men ball and all that. Man, bro, a lot of niggas got on that nigga helmet. I know that nigga DMs was flooded with shit, but I think him apologizing is some man shit, bro. That's some. I'm gonna give him that. I'm gonna be. Apologize. You see what I'm saying? Regardless if it's genuine or not, I do know this though. That nigga knew that shit was real, bro. He knew it was real. He just didn't know that. Damn, nigga, when it comes to California, nigga, like nigga, you from Cali, nigga. At full court press, see you from up north. But that nigga, Southern California, nigga. You know what I'm saying? South Central. Yeah, nigga.
Yeah, nigga. Nigga just won a Nobel Prize, nigga. The nigga Nobel Prize for